Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnelle Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Yeah, because I'm taking a social media diet, but if I was on social media, I would post that we're in town for you're in town.
Okay.
That would be fun. Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. Help me out of here.
I think we're being helped out of here.
Yeah.
Right now, all the funding seems to, and we're not alone. England's much worse than we are. They are just struggling left and right. There's a list of endangered theaters that have been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, they're closing their doors.
They're closing their doors. And of course, I just read that two major theaters in Seattle are merging because they can't afford to stay alive on their own. 8 others have closed completely in Seattle. So, we're what's the word? We're cleaning house. That's a nice way to word it.
It's a watershed moment, they like to say. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnelle Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And let's get down to business.
Yay, business.
So, Mitch, as we are recording this, last night was the Grammy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of production value, I think they have produced the best award show this year so far.
Oh, no doubt. It was so
it's February.
It was so entertaining. Every musical number was what you hope to see in every Broadway musical.
Yeah.
They were spectacular.
It was a complete sell. It was also a benefit for LA. For the LA fires. Every bit of the conversation was about LA and all the people who are now struggling to make sense of all of this. And all the songs had elements of Los Angeles, like these odes to California in them. So there was a lot of tribute songs. It was well laid out. And there was little to no real talk about the federal government and all that nonsense. Like Trevor Noah made a couple of digs, but they weren't even like, by the way, I'm going to pause for a moment to talk about how,
right.
It wasn't like that. And
unlike what some politicians do when they talk about disaster, it's like disaster's a disaster. People are hurting. And it's one of the greatest things. I know I'm taking this another direction. It's one of the things that I adore most about our industry is that we learn about what it feels like to be other people when they are suffering.
Yeah.
We watch people go through drug addiction. I mean, look, Tennessee Williams, Long Day's Journey into Night, these shows that take you to dark places, but you walk out of there fulfilled. The Grapes of Wrath, we went through a historical period of time where people were just starving all across the country because of through the Dust Bowl and how they made it. Ragtime, we learn about the class system in the United States and how there's hope coming through it. It's just glorious because, quite honestly, I don't get to live other people's lives, right? I have my own to worry about. Yeah. I get to feel their lives by watching theater. And of course, the Grammys, I think what made them successful is they were very theatrical. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking about some of the performances, like Sabrina Carpenter had this completely elaborate set, but the staging, the set was on all 3 sides projection screens. So they could easily transfer, transformed the moment very quickly. Also, not about the Grammys, but the Fire Aid concert that they had was also well done too. That staging, they were on a turntable and they just kept turning it, and there was a new act waiting and just kept going. I thought it was very smart. If anything, I don't know. I love theater. Theater brings us together, but nothing brings us together more than music. Music.
There's no question. Part of the reason, theater or not, why we love musicals too.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
There's
music. As you know, I've worked in the music industry. The only problem with the music industry, as a business, we're not talking about our love for music.
Yeah.
Is there is so much money in it that the corruption is so beyond anything anybody can imagine. I mean, the amount of theft of artists by their managers, by their companies. There was at the Grammys, there's that wonderful speech. Shakira. Was that Shakira? No, Shakira talked about immigration. It was Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga talked about supporting. No, that wasn't. That was another thing.
I know. I know, and I was going to mention it. It was Chappell Roan.
Chappell Roan, thank you. Who said we need to support our artists because you cannot survive without health care.
Yeah,
and
she pointed out how she just won this award, but like a year ago, she was struggling to just exist, and her label didn't support her with health insurance or anything like that. And she ultimately ended it saying, the artists have your back. Do you have ours? And brought the house down on that one. And it was beautiful. And it was pointing out just like, I had the talent. You signed me. But for some reason, you didn't believe that taking care of me was any of your responsibility. Like no part of your apparatus, all this money we make you, you didn't think to just, throw a girl some health care.
Well, and again, it can be solved if there was universal health care. I don't want to get into politics, because a company is going to look at it and say, how do they tell their stockholders that they're paying for somebody who's not working for them anymore? Right?
Yeah.
And that's where the business end of America falls apart when you're dealing with the arts industry.
Yeah, but they're still on your labels, so they are working for you.
Well, they could be. They're not making you any money is what I'm suggesting. Yeah. But her point was so welcome. One of the great things, again, let's get back to theater here in New York, the actors, the former actors from Broadway Cares, and now called the Entertainment Community Fund. The two of them, if you are for lack of a better term, starving artist, you can apply to them because they raise money year-round to do nothing but help people in the arts. But you have to apply. And
the fund?
The fund. If you go to them and say, this is a real situation, two actors, male and female, got divorced. The woman kept the apartment. The male had a job, but did not have enough money for a down payment on a new apartment. He went to the Actors Fund and he said, I have a possible apartment. I have money coming in every week. I can't afford this. They wrote him a check within 1 hour as a loan. And their record is 98% plus repay all the loans they give out. That's an amazing thing. They don't even make them sign a contract. They write them the check. And Music Cares, by the way, which came out of, I was alive when Music Cares existed. Came out of the 80s era. The same thing. You can apply for help. The problem is no one advertises this stuff. As a manager, we used to walk up to cast members and say, I heard someone told me you're having problems. Why don't I just give you the phone number for Cheryl over at the Actors Fund and tell them your problem? And problem was solved like that.
That's great.
But they don't advertise it enough. People don't understand it. So
it's just like how many artists understand the equity rulebook?
How many artists? And now we're getting into my top 10 stressful moments in the arts. How many actors actually read emails?
We're going to start a corner.
Yeah. I'm going to start with this one. I sent 5 actors who were auditioning the complete schedule, rehearsal schedule in detail. I said, before you come to the audition, please let us know if you have any conflicts on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the 5, 4 of them wrote back, no conflicts, or this one day I have a conflict. Great. The person that we gave the lead role to wrote, if after we gave him the lead role, I'd love to do it. I'm involved in another show, but I don't have that schedule of theirs yet. Can you send me the schedule so I can look it over? And I'm going, look at your emails 2 days ago. It's there. And now I have to worry whether or not they're going to have a conflict because they didn't read the email.
Yeah.
That's okay. We started with my number one stressful moment.
That's why our working title is help. It was help me out here, which is also relevant, but help me out of here is I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is stressful. It's interesting because sure, the artist might be trying to juggle a few balls at the same time, to keep their revenue stream going. I totally understand that. But at the same time, so are the producers.
Yeah.
And the producers are having a hard time, and you don't see everything. We might cut you a check. We might feel very anxious about that check we just cut. Because it is very tight.
And you're absolutely right, but that's on, as you said, it's on many different sides. The director, the actor, the producer, everybody's stressed. My argument is, if you get an email with information and you don't read it, you're the cause. You're the cause of the stress.
Yeah,
and they don't teach people in college or in high school that communication is important, and that's as important as your acting talent. You must read and respond.
And some people feel like their focus is their craft, but they focus so intently on it that they ignore all these other things. Yeah, it's not everybody. I'm just saying, like, this might resonate with you, or you might know someone. But yeah, it's tough on all sides. Like, in general, you just have to think about everybody involved wants the best possible outcome, and communication is key.
So, Darnelle, let's have some fun. Let's talk about all the fun ways that you and I have felt stress in the theaters. I'm gonna go first just to make sure it's fun. Okay,
it's rushing to go first.
Okay, rushing. Okay, go. First preview of a Broadway show, right? And trying to make sure everything's working right. Intermission comes, everything's great. I get a scream from one of the ushers. A nun in full habit has had a heart attack in the lobby during intermission.
Wow.
Okay, how much more fun can you have? Tell me, Darnelle.
Okay. First night of previews, our lead actor, of which there are only 2, got COVID.
Yay!
And so we're trying to figure out how to manage this for a few days until they get a clear diagnosis, and then they can be masked. We'll be safe and whatnot. As soon as they are in the clear, our other actor gets COVID. And so if it wasn't for an extension, we would not have saved our goal.
Actually, I think I saw that show at your theater. Because I remember, what do you have, a stage manager or someone go on with book?
Oh, we had a director go on.
The director went on. That was it. I saw that performance. I paid for that performance.
Yeah. I'd also say, this wasn't as stressful, but I was stressed. when we did the reading series last summer. We were at our first day of rehearsals, and we didn't have a cast for one of the readings. We didn't have it locked, at least. And so we had a conversation with that team and said, we're just trying to get this one role filled, and then we'll get started. So we probably just need another day or two. And if it wasn't for an actor who was already in the show, reached out to someone and got us a stellar actor. We were so glad. We went through that whole process, and he just called a friend. And then this actor really delivered. We were so grateful and just praising the ensemble altogether. But it's like, I hate to say we sort of retired, or we dumbed down the phrase "the show must go on," but we all still embody it internally. We just don't say it. It's in the trash bin with 10s and 12s.
Yeah. Okay, my next one.
Yes.
All right. You have a show that has an income per performance. Okay, we're talking Broadway. Of between $100,000 and $250,000 for one performance. They predict the night before a major snowstorm. Do you go on or don't you go on? And you have to make that decision.
Yeah.
All right?
I'd say,
is that stress enough for you?
It is stress. If there's a streaming component, you go on. If there isn't,
no streaming component. We're talking a Broadway show.
It's about everyone's safety too. If people can get to the theater, it's not a guarantee that the audience will get to the theater.
Well, or the actors.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if the team can't get to the theater,
well, you won't know that. The snow is supposed to start at noon. Your show is at 7:00 at night. How do you know when to call the show? And all those people from out of town who are driving in or taking the train.
Oh my God.
How do you notify them? How do you make sure? What decisions are you? Right? These are stressful.
Get me bridge and tunnel. It's everybody. Everybody from Jersey is getting noticed.
There you go.
All at once.
Okay, your turn. What's your next on your list?
Let's see. Okay, you plan a season. You've got materials, everything. You've got names announced. Who's in the show? Who's directing the show? You get to that point in your season where this show is about to enter in rehearsal, and your director drops out. who's been promoted in your season all season, and mentioned in opening night speeches, and part of our marketing money has been spent advertising this director on, attached.
And by the way, that's why if anybody ever wonders what a general manager does or how you become a general manager, the company manager has a different list of responsibilities. The general manager primarily has to have what in the old days we called a Rolodex, which is a phone book.
Of people they can call.
Of people they can call. They need to know everyone on a personal basis. So, if the producer comes to you and says, why can't we get Lady Gaga to take over the role tonight? It's not about whether that's a stupid idea. What it is, do I have Lady Gaga's information in my phone? And your job is to have it.
And an effective general manager would be like, Stephanie is not available.
That's right. Or I'll tell you what, I just had dinner with her last night. Let me give her a call and see what I can do.
Listen, can you do a tight 10?
Okay, next stress. And this is, I'm even going to name the show on this one. The original production of Titanic on Broadway. What they did is they spent $1 million on the elevator that allowed the ship to tilt into the stage and up so that you saw the ship sinking and tilting. For 3 weeks of previews, the elevator didn't work. Every single preview, they stopped the show and stagehands had to run it manually, and it took them 20 minutes each time, manually move the set and tilt it so that they could then finish the show and the audience wouldn't complain.
Wow.
3 weeks of that.
Wow.
Come on, stress?
Yeah.
Right?
Very much so. The next one I have isn't mine. It's sort of anecdotal. But you're an arts organization who says, wouldn't it be fun to just give an award? Let's just make one up and give it to them. Who are we going to give it to? What about Stephen Sondheim? How about that? So you set up an event to give an award to Stephen Sondheim, and everything is there. Everything is great. Probably 15 minutes before your presentation is about to go live, power goes out in your entire theater.
Oh, God.
And so you've got to improvise. But luckily, you're an organization who has another building that is mostly performance spaces, like rehearsal spaces and whatnot. It's not ready for this. It wasn't part of the mix in any way. But the team rallies and the production continues, and everybody is wonderfully loving it, and it makes the news.
Oh yeah.
There's a similar one, just because, and not too deep in that, but there was another theater where the power goes out in the middle of the show, and so they took the show out to the street and performed it there for the audience.
Nice.
Yeah, that show continued. That's great. That all this speaks to the resilience of theater artists.
There's no question, but and this is what I'm focused on just today.
Mm-hmm.
The person whose shoulder it gets dumped on to decide what to do. Yeah. No, it could be anybody there. It could be a director. It could be the artistic director. It could be the general manager. It could be a producer. Somebody is stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take it to the extreme. COVID, Broadway just shut down. All of a sudden, people were an hour away from their show, and they got a text that said, "Go home." And then they thought, well, it's going to be a couple of days. And then they were told it's a couple of weeks. And then they were told, we don't know. And then they were told, now it's 18 months and you're out of work. There's no show. The set and I walked into these theaters like a ghost. They were set up for the show to go on that night, but nobody was there to put it all away. So it just sat there on stage like a ghost for 18 months. Who's making the decisions you have to make?
Wow.
And of course, 9/11, all of a sudden we have the terrorist attacks in New York. Who's going to go to the theater? And, and when are they going to go to the theater? And when do you reopen the theater? And which theaters do you reopen? And why? And what do you do? And then what do you do with the people who bought tickets for that day and the day after? And how do you reach them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about, I'm exhausted because I was there. It's exhausting. All right, I've got another fun one. Well, I don't know if this is fun. Yeah, it's fun. Okay, Broadway show again. Act One's going on. A couple who are on their 10th anniversary, came into town. They rented the same hotel room that they had their honeymoon in. They're staying the weekend. Husband's taking his wife to her favorite show. And the people sitting behind them are not noticeably, but actually drunk. And in the middle of Act One, the guy behind them throws up on the woman and her mink stole.
Oh, no.
While Act One is going on. And not that we can blame them, they immediately, the couple understood they were in trouble. They ran out of the theater. There was no one to blame. There was no one to catch. Now, you and the ushers have to deal with the most irate husband in the world who keeps screaming from the ladies' room that he's not going to get sex that weekend.
Ah.
And that we owe him money for the fact he's not getting sex. This is, honest to God, this happened to me. All right. So go ahead, your turn.
They should have gone out of their way to try to help him. Does it have to be her? I mean, we can remedy some of this.
Yeah. Anybody on stage that you like? Pick out anyone you want.
Is there anyone in the theater who will make sex on this man? Make sex. Yeah.
Make sex. Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, I can't think of anything else like personally, like something that directly affected me.
I got one. I'll keep going. When
Go
you
ahead.
jump in when you think of them. When you have a producer or director who's not good at making decisions and you get to the last second and it's going to cost your show unbelievable amounts of money if they ever do make a decision, because you're missing costumes and you're missing set pieces because they can't make a decision.
Yeah.
That, talk about stress, you're sitting there going, I can make the decision, but that's not your job.
Yeah.
And you sit there and say, we're 3 days away from the first preview. This is now going to cost us an extra $120,000 because you waited this long. And you have to make a decision now. Oh, I don't know. I'll get back to you soon. And they walk out. What do you do?
Oh, no.
And I'm talking, this is major expensive theater, right? We're not talking about some little community theater where the director does that.
I'll tell you, when I started producing my podcast, once I got into the swing of it, I realized there was a lot of things that was going to be very time consuming to do, like editing the episode, normalizing audio, and getting background noises away and everything. And so I improvised and said, you know what, I'm just going to let them know where we are. And so I can, all of those noises, all those sounds will be forgiven, or at least kind of part of the landscape. So I used to say, you know, today I find myself at XYZ coffee shop and so on. And so it just allowed for all that noise to be part of where we were. And so once I did that, it just sort of saved me, and I could breathe a little bit and not be so concerned about that quality. But I do have another one. Your production team has a meeting. They discuss painting the floor, like not a faux floor that was put on top of your floor, like painting the floor as the aesthetic part of the set design, right? So you hire a painter. The painter does a wonderful job. It sits on our floor for several days, and we're happy about it. You take pictures, but then the director comes in to see it and doesn't like it. And so the whole thing has to be painted over, and it doesn't get repainted. For budget reasons. Like that wad was blown on the first, and I don't know why we couldn't have, like, you know, adjusted it. Like, maybe we can do something and it'll be fine. I don't know, but that was very disappointing.
Again, that's why you need personalities of directors, actors. You need to know who's trouble.
Yeah.
The problem is, of course, is we, meaning you, Darnelle, and me, Mitch, we don't always get to make that decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're wrong, you know.
I also think a lot of people are assuming that this chaos is genius, and they sort of give a pass for it. You know, and it's not. It's like, often the reason things are chaotic like that is because this is somebody who should have stopped working like this for a long time, but because the people that keep hiring him are happy with something, or like they're a draw, having their name attached to something, even though it creates chaos for the entire production team, it brings people in, you know? And so, yeah, there's a lot of that dealing.
Also, many times I've discovered that the first and second choices are already working.
Mm-hmm.
And so I won't say settling, you're still getting somebody with talent.
Yeah.
But you are taking a chance on somebody you don't know well.
True.
And then when you find out, hopefully you're smart enough not to hire them again.
Absolutely. Or, I mean, maybe they surprise you.
How many times has that happened to you, Joe?
I don't know. We have to be wishful. We have to wishful thinking.
It's a very tricky business.
Yes.
Here's one. I got one for you, a very important one.
Okay.
You've put in all this rehearsal time. You got a wonderful cast. You think you may have something that's really worthwhile for an audience to see, and nobody's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've started and you have an audience of 10 people, a cast of 20, and all these empty seats. And you go, how do I get people in? And now you're first panicking because you can't do it overnight anyway.
Yeah.
Talk about stress.
Do you remember when TV shows would do some kind of advertisement that was like, the best show you're not watching?
Yeah.
Like, I can think of there was a show on Fox called Party of Five that had Lacey Chabert in it. And I remember that show was a good show, but no one was watching it.
Including me. I never saw it.
Yeah. And so they advertised the best show no one's watching. And I remember a couple of times that I always, and then I think, we're kind of guilty of saying this too, but like, you kind of justify your low attendance as being a best kept secret and saying you don't want to be a best kept secret anymore. It's like, well, I don't know. I think people know you're here.
Well, and it also, one of the things that I learned early on from the advertising industry, when they started, the first TV commercial was Pippin that anyone ever tried.
Yeah.
It was a big success. So now other shows wanted to try it. What would happen, though, is it's expensive. So they would wait until they said, oh, my God, we're not selling tickets. Let's make a TV commercial. And what the ad agency had failed to tell them is once it starts airing, it takes 3 weeks for you to see ticket sales from the TV commercial. People first soak it in. They think about the date they want to go. Then they think about how they're going to buy it. And then they finally go. Yeah. So if your show is about to close, a TV commercial is a waste of money. Because in 3 weeks or longer, you're dead anyway. So why spend the money? But again, you get the frustration is when only some people working in the show know that information and somebody else is insisting on it. Yeah. Stress again. Absolutely. Why is this? Why is it so difficult, Darnelle? What is the problem?
Well, I don't know. I think early on, at the start of all this, let's just go back to 1918. There wasn't much to go on. Like there wasn't much happening before. It's not that things were happening before, but like the model that we know now kind of started then and moved forward. And so the earlier people were just kind of winging it. They were making sense of this and adjusting as they went and so on. But now we require so much intelligence in advance, and that we don't understand the way our education model is to laser focus on something and not have a well-rounded kind of mindset about things, which the earlier people were in it. They were in the thick of it. And so they were responding in real time. They were on their feet all the time. Something came up and it's like, you got to go. There was all these many movies and TV shows about a show that's opening and something happens the day before and they've got to figure it out. But really in those times, there was only one theater. There might be a theater in this place and everybody was coming. And so you just didn't want your show to be shit because everybody was coming. And so you knew they were coming. But in this case now there's so many options. And so you don't know.
And so, yeah. And as you brought up in those movies, there are so many elements that aren't even discussed. Mm-hmm. Where did the audience come from?
Absolutely.
Right? That's not part of it. It's like, oh, now we're going to let the understudy go on opening night. And we're going to rehearse her for 2 hours a day and give her no sleep and not worry about union rules and not worry about paying her. And nobody else on the set on the show has to even think about how they fit in with a new person.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was thinking, because we were talking about TV, Only Murders in the Building, in the season where they produce Death Rattle.
I haven't seen that yet, so don't tell me.
Yeah. The thing is, like, Oliver Putnam, played by Martin Short, is like a washed up theater producer. And so he's producing this musical. The question is, who is showing up to opening night and why? You know, their concern is not about who's showing up to opening night. Their concern is that there's a killer in their ranks. And so it's just interesting how that is, they're not concerned about opening night, which is going to be a full house. And but it's all the stuff going on behind the scenes, and it's really great. Go back and watch it if you have time.
Oh no, I taped them all. I just haven't gotten to everything.
Quite enjoyable. But yeah, I think, we love observing that chaos because we want to know how the story gets the character out of it. But like, I think because people love to experience that, from that safety of it not being you, that it sort of clicks in our brains that we want that drama. And some people kind of wish that drama, or they welcome it in. Like, I would see that and say, wow, I'm so glad they got out of that. I never want to be in that situation.
But, I think you're right. There are a lot of people, the old adage, I want my drama on the stage, not in real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is, I think, the absolute ecstatic feeling you get when you get a show up and it's clicking and it's working and you feel great about it. I mean, it's a phenomenal feeling. But the older you get, the rarer that is. And what we have is all this stress and chaos leading up to it, with the dream that it's going to finally, when it comes to fruition, it's finally going to be worth it. Yeah. And that's what movies have done to us. Going back to vaudeville, I mean, everybody just worried about their own act. And it's, you either found a producer of vaudeville saying, I'll buy your act because I've seen it, and it's what I want. But it wasn't about, I have to prove myself to an audience. And for some reason, people wanted to go see vaudeville in those days. I'm not sure why. We get it for free on the Carol Burnett Show. Right? Yeah. And other shows, although we're missing them kind of at this point. Anyway, but the stress beyond the TV industry is the same thing. The streaming model now is extremely stressful for business. Yeah. Trying to figure out how much money can we guess that we should spend, because we're only going to see so much money back from advertisers or from the streaming subscription.
I've been thinking about that too. It's like during the pandemic, this was convenience. And it was a way for them to sort of pry themselves away from the cable company by saying, like, we're just going to put our inventory in our own space, which we kind of already have, because there were portals like this for screeners. It was like this infrastructure already existed. They just turned it on for paying customers. But then now that we have that, there's this model of, let's just drop the whole series all at once and then let people binge it. But now we're at the point where it's like, this show is too good to give all of it to me at once. Like, come on, you have to pepper it out. I will gladly tune in now. And I feel like people want it now that it's just like everything else. We're oversaturated with everything. And so we retreat to nostalgia. We go back to the things that we've loved because there's so much new being forced in front of you. And even though those shows might be great, it's an overload. And it's like, I can't keep track. Like, everybody keeps telling me this new show. I'm just going to go back to like the sitcoms that we all grew up with. We knew we would never be disappointed by them.
I hate to, now I'm really dating myself. It's certainly, I watch the new shows as well, but I still go back to Perry Mason from the 1950s and 60s, and it's a good mystery. And some of it's very funny because it's not of our society. It's from a different era.
Yeah.
And you kind of can enjoy that. You can look at what they're wearing and how every woman, when she sees a dead body, screams.
Yeah.
Really? Come on, people. you don't scream like that. You either deal with it, you call up 911. But it was a different era.
Yeah.
Right?
CBS rebooted Matlock.
Oh, it's wonderful.
With Kathy Bates.
I thank God for that. But you know what? Part of it is the nuance. When you see an actress at her best, Kathy Bates, and the nuance of that character, what she's dealing with, that's, again, maybe it's because we're in the theater. It's like I can watch the plot, but at a certain point I just go, did you see how she read that line? Oh my God, look at her face when she did that.
Yeah.
How did she know the camera was at that angle and that one glance was going to really turn me on?
Yeah.
It's like you just fall in love with something like that.
I've been saying you're of a certain age when you have a favorite show on CBS. But CBS knows how to do it. Like they have a new series called Watson with Morris Chestnut. And it's, because they've done, Sherlock Holmes before with Elementary with Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu. And it was successful, ran for 6 seasons. And so they dropped this pilot weeks before it launches, 13 million viewers.
Wow.
13 million viewers. It's like they know what they're doing. But also there's something about CBS, Paramount in general, who... it seems like a pipeline from Broadway. There's a lot of theater artists who work in Paramount Productions.
Yeah. Also, Only Murders in the Building is all Broadway.
Yeah.
Right. They just adore each other, and I love who shows up on it.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think that's what's so wonderful about that series. Like there is a whodunit, but you've got this great ensemble who is reaching into genres and generations. You got Selena Gomez bringing in the younger crowd. You got Martin Short and Steve Martin. Just this duo has just been unstoppable for years, and so you're in love with them. If you're a comedy fan, you're in love with them, and you want their banter back and forth. If you're a Philadelphian, Davine Joy Randolph, her character is just stunning and just amazing. I can't say enough about how great her role is on that show.
Now you're bringing up something which I think, at least currently, I've been missing. There used to be on Broadway some shows in which the writers wrote for particular stars, and being that even though this year on Broadway it's very star-studded. They are just, we've got George Clooney, we've got Denzel Washington, we've got Jake Gyllenhaal, it just goes on and on. I'm just hoping the shows are good. But, the cast members are just, they're unbelievable. But that's also very expensive. So the question now comes down to, why are they doing these shows, and were the characters written for them? To allow them not only to be themselves, but to be great actors. That's where Jason Robards, now really dating myself, Jason Robards, when he took a role, or Streetcar Named Desire, Marlon Brando on Broadway. I mean, Stella! You can't ask for anything more magnificent. I don't know that I've seen anything like that in a long time.
Yeah.
These roles were just made for some of these actors. So, Only Murders in the Building, those writers said, oh, she's coming on. We're going to write this character.
Yeah. My reference when you say Jason Robards is Fame.
Really?
There's a song in the musical called I Want to Make Magic. And there's a spot, it's like, I want a chance to see what I can be, another Jason Robards or De Niro.
Really?
Play a tragic hero. Go for it all and really show the way I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
See,
that was my first musical, my freshman year of high school, Fame. Yeah. So that's why I have that connection. It's so interesting how, I remember, like, once I got out of high school, I realized I didn't really have a foundation in theater because I would meet somebody who had one and was like, everything we talked about was a reference to a musical or play. And I was like, wow, I guess even though I'm immersed in theater, I don't know a whole lot about the canon. And so I started doing like deep dives. And there were a lot of movie musicals that were on Netflix early on. And so I used to rent all of them and watch things.
I know a press agent who his tirade is always how colleges do not give theater history and theater people. And that it's very important to know the references and the shows. On the other hand, not this press agent, but there are other people, their references are so constant, you want to smack them in the face. Stop it already. We're living in the real world. Not everything has to be a musical or a play.
Yes.
And I also know people like that. I don't know really what the difference is. There's a personality. There's a way of doing it that isn't obnoxious, but kind of studious and interesting. And then there are other people where it's obnoxious. Shut up.
I love to quote theater in arguments. I especially love to use musical themes to win arguments.
That we've noticed on this podcast, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm often just surprising myself that I can pull it, and from wherever it came from, I'm just like, wow. I always make a reference, like when it's a deep cut. I always say I went down to the basement for that one. was going through old files.
I'm just always pleased when I understand somebody's reference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes me happy. I don't need to respond to it. I just inside smile and go, I know what you're talking about.
Well, I've always had that. I have a background in IT. I have those moments in IT. My best friend and I, we have a lot of pop culture references. We'll just kind of like my friend Dan, he'll send me a text saying, "What kind of boat you got?" And this is a quote from the 2000 version of the movie Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson. But God. I know that reference, so he'll just text me, "What kind of boat you got?" And I'll respond, "A Boston whaler." It's like, Boston whaler. It's just silly, but those are moments where we've been friends for over 25 years and we have that shorthand. I think that's really good about communities too. Communities have that shorthand, especially in theater.
Yeah, shorthand's a good thing. Unfortunately, I don't have the movie. I mean, not that I haven't seen movies, but I don't have the same, to me, if you say Shaft, I'm going back to the original.
Yeah, Richard Roundtree.
I wouldn't even go think about a Samuel Jackson version. I'm not interested in seeing it.
Well, I mean, the reason, I love Richard Roundtree. I respect him too. And actually, he was in the movie.
Yeah,
he doesn't play Shaft though. But that movie had Toni Collette, had what's his name? Christian Bale, Jeffrey Wright was in that. Yeah, it was just so good. Busta Rhymes from New York. But it was really good. And to see those stars in much more notable, like Oscar winning performances now, you're just like, wow, I can't believe they put all those people together, had no idea where they would be in 15 years. And then like, you're just like, wow, it's just, I think that's great about our community too. Like I think of, we do have these levels of theater based on like size and budget and whatnot, like kind of determines quality sometimes because there's just more money in the production and all. And, but you can remember, when an actor was in a show at a black box like 20 years ago, and now they're on the main stage, or like they're getting all these accolades with like the likes of the Wilma Theater or Arden here in Philly. And you're just like, I remember you, and remember that little shoebox of a theater we used to perform in? It's not even a theater anymore. Like, I remember those shows, and look at you now. Like, it's just great to see how far we've come.
The question now is, with the loss of funding from a lot of sources, not just the government, will people have the same history? There are certainly plenty of shoebox shows that people will try to put together, but at least here in New York, the number of places that can afford to develop anything has been greatly reduced. I will say, I remember, we're switching back to the recording industry. I remember in the late 1980s, forgive me for going back before you were born.
I was born in the 80s.
Okay.
I wasn't running things, though. I was just being a kid.
This was when there was still CDs and cassettes. We didn't have any music streaming. There was no digital music. And what was going on, because I was working in the music industry, there were major articles, no such thing as blogs back then, about the industry talking about how they were working on new hardware that would transport the artists that they were now calling software around the world in an instant. And they were working on it so that there would be no hard physical music. It would all be done over the airwaves. And at the time, it sounded, fantasy. But all of the major labels had put money into this research, and where they were taking the money from was their A&R department, which is artists, right?
And
repertoire. And repertoire.
Repertoire.
Which is their development, which would mean they would go out and see a band in a little hellhole performing and go, they're going to be the next big thing. I'm going to sign them and send them into one of our studios, and let's see if we can develop them into a star and package them, put them in the right costumes, and maybe change their name. And that would be the A&R guy. And of course, in those days, they were all guys talking about another thing that has gratefully changed. So that kind of world that we are now in is they took the money from development. I'm fearful that with the $32 million Broadway productions that are going into production this year, that we're losing what little money there might be, because Broadway is commercial. So we're not talking about funding from any national source or grants or anything. But all the nonprofits are looking for, where do we develop the work that will eventually go to Broadway? And they're not getting the funding. So the trick's going to be, a couple of years from now, will we have lost our way? Theater will survive. I'm not worried about that. But it is a concern.
I think we're probably going to have to figure out how to not count on the support. It's tough because a lot of the conversation is other countries give more support to the arts than we do. And the conversation is like, why do we not see this as a valuable thing for a thriving society? Like, why don't we want, it should be a given that all of our citizens have access to arts and culture. And it should be the government's concern. But like, why would you want to be a government who's constantly thinking about who's trying to fight me? Who's trying to take us to war? Like, what? That doesn't have to be your focus all the time, especially if you stay out of their business, you know?
Well, yeah,
I know, and I know it's not, I know it's more than that.
You know the answer to that.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and that's part of it. I mean, if we need to reduce all of our governments to their basic and purest responsibilities, it is protection. Okay. And we have people in many countries who believe that the government should only be doing its smallest amount of effort in the most purest way, and everything else is on its own.
Yeah.
And you're right. If we can figure out a process, but then, and I guess this is a plea to everyone in our audience, we need angels, and we just need people who say, I believe that what you're providing for the community, or that what you are providing for the new playwrights of America or the world is worth it, and I'm going to give you money. But as we're talking about our stress levels, okay, I'm going to go right to that. I saw a show just 2 nights ago at Playwrights Horizons, a wonderful developmental theater that has had many hits come out of it and Pulitzer Prize winning shows. They do great work. One of the things I noticed is it was a small show, which I liked very much. And the set and the costumes were spectacular. And I'm thinking, in this small little theater, if they were to just present the play to me, would I have felt the same way, or did they need to spend that money? And the answer is both yes and no. I'm grateful that I saw it with all the accoutrement that made it look special and sound special beyond the words.
Yeah.
But I also think they could have done it without it, and I still would have liked the show. But it's a real struggle. At what point do we say, we need money? We need to hire designers. We need to hire stagehands. We need to hire assistant directors because the director is stressed out, or the producer is stressed out. Somebody needs an assistant, even if it's just, please let me take an hour off and get coffee for myself. You just watch the rehearsal, right? And people don't understand that we don't even pay them a lot of money, and it adds up. Of course, Broadway, they're just trying to compete with Disney. $32 million for a show is outrageous. And yet we have 5 shows this year that are over $30 million. 5 new shows. That's outrageous. I don't know. That means we have to pay even more to get in to see it. I'm again, here I am. I'm whining. I know it. But, I'd like to contribute to theater by buying a ticket. I just can't afford it.
Well, the rent in the theater is too damn high.
There you go. See your references.
In New York. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up today, I just want to go back to the Grammys to say that Alicia Keys and the team of Hell's Kitchen won Best Musical Theater Album. I called this from the beginning. Hell's Kitchen should have won Best Musical at the Tony Awards, but The Outsiders' Rain sequence is the reason. I know it's more than that, but I'm just saying. It
is more.
The Outsiders, well-deserved, but I was in the camp of Hell's Kitchen, and Hell's Kitchen took home the Grammy for theater album.
I actually, this was one of the years where I felt there were 4 equally worthy and not worthy shows.
Absolutely.
So the Outsiders one, I understood why, but I also don't think it qualifies in the category of the great shows of our lifetime. It can't compete with a Lion King, Ragtime, Sound of Music. I mean, West Side Story, you go down the list, it is a modern West Side Story. Hell's Kitchen, because I'm not a giant fan of bio musicals, and I went, okay, even though it's not actually the truth, it was well done, but the story is just okay, and then she did this, and then this happened to her, and that doesn't move me. So I understood why it didn't win. But you called it. It's a horse race. Some people would like one, some the other. I did.
Well, I was also thinking, because the nominees, The Wiz, Suffs, The Outsiders, The Notebook, and Merrily, We Roll Along. I loved Merrily.
Yeah.
So did I. And you're looking at all of them going, oh, it's so tough. I would have loved for every single one of them to win the Grammy. But I was wondering if it won the Grammy because it's Alicia Keys and as a notable and very impactful recording artist.
Of course it did.
Was it more of a draw there? Because Alicia Keys also won the Global Impact Award this year as well. And so in this space, this is Alicia's true house. Well,
and I'm sure I have not listened to it. I'm sure the recording is wonderful. But I also think that, and this is a prejudice, their people don't even know who the other people are on Broadway. So they're going to go, here's a name. She has a Broadway show, and we love her songs. So, let's go for the thing we know. It's like...
And how close was... I mean, how was The Wiz close at all in terms of winning? Like, I'm wondering that.
You don't want to hear me talk about this version of The Wiz, because I don't think it came anywhere close to the original.
But in terms of like relatability in the Grammy pool, I'm wondering.
I just don't think it was a great musical example. And that doesn't mean it's bad in any way whatsoever.
I haven't seen it. I just, we just carry something for The Wiz in general.
Right.
But that's why I said that. Okay. That's the business of theater. But before we end, I just want to let everybody know that BroadwayCon is February 7th through the 9th. You can go to BroadwayCon.com to find out what's going on there.
In New York City.
In New York City.
At the Marriott Marquis.
Why would they have BroadwayCon in Kansas City?
Why not?
No.
Look where they put the Baseball Hall of Fame.
True. Yeah.
Right? It's up, right? And what's in Cleveland and what's in upstate New York and one's... True. Right? Come on.
Very true. But yeah, so look into that. I looked at the lineup. There's some interesting things in there, but at the same time, I'm having a hard time justifying the ticket costs. But I feel like everything tied to Broadway is just way overpriced. Is it valuable? Is it worth it? I guess. But I think the audience is Bridge and Tunnel and Midwestern coming to New York and being immersed in the world of Broadway. So I don't know. I mean, they're still doing it. I don't want them to go away. I just want those tickets to get down to normal convention prices. And not this. But I know that once the numbers go up, they'll do something. But I don't know that that's true, though. I feel like they make this kind of money now, and if they have more people, they'll just get a different venue and continue making this kind of money.
We'll see. I hope that somebody, and I have heard a Broadway producer say, this is stupid. Why is this costing us so much more than it used to? And I think once they grab a handle on that, if they ever do, it'll be to our benefit. It doesn't mean it's going to be cheap. Nobody's going to bring it down.
I know.
It just can't keep going up.
But it's just like if you want to rent this space to have a birthday party for your little girl, it's probably going to be pennies. But as soon as you tell them it's a wedding, it's going to be 80 times the price.
Yeah.
It's something about that. But, We sort of introduce more problems than we solve here on this podcast, but that's the business of theater, a working title. I'm Darnelle Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And we'll see you at the theater. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnelle Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.